Good morning to all the students. Welcome to the physics class. Today we are going to start our second chapter, units and measurements. In this, we will study about the measurements of various quantities, how they are measured, and what are the units for measuring them we use. In this, our first topic is need for the measurement. If we talk about the measurement, then what is the measurement? Measurement is basically to measure length, to measure mass, measure time. Like this, we measure some of the quantities, and these measurements are basically used in the relations which we develop in the physics. See students, we have many formulas in the physics, many relations between the quantities in the physics. So to know the quantity, to find out the value of any quantity, we need some of the measurements. Like we want to find out the force, then we have to apply the formula relation F is equal to ma. Now how we can find out the force? We should measure mass and we should measure acceleration. Only then we put the value of these two and we can calculate force. Otherwise we cannot calculate the force. So here we need this. What we need? We need to measure the mass. We need to measure the acceleration. Otherwise we cannot find out the force if we don't know the mass and if we don't know the acceleration. So likewise we have many relations for which we have to do a certain measurements, and also we should measure any quantity with the accuracy. If our measuring system, our measuring method, our measuring instrument are not accurate, then we will not get the right value of the given quantity. So it should be accuracy in our measurement system. So this is the need of the measurement in the physics. After that, our next topic is physical quantities. So what are the physical quantities? Basically, in the physics we study about the nature, natural phenomena, natural laws. To explain those phenomena, to explain those laws, we need help of some of the quantities. Like we want to compare two things, we can compare any two objects with the help of the quantity length. We can compare two objects by weight. So similarly, we need the quantities like length, mass, time, temperature. We say that the body of this temperature is higher than the body of this temperature. So similarly, all the quantities are known as physical quantities, which can be measured. Like length, we can measure the length, we can measure the mass, we can measure the temperature. So we define our laws of physics, our phenomena in physics with the help of these quantities, and these quantities are measurable. These can be measured. So we can define the physical quantities, that all those quantities which can be measured directly or indirectly, and in terms of which we can define our laws of physics, our phenomena of physics are called the physical quantities. For example, length, mass, temperature, speed, force, these all are the physical quantities. There may be certain difference between them to method of measurement, units of measurement, they may be different, but these all are the physical quantities. So similarly, we have types of physical quantities. So there are two types of physical quantities. One is fundamental quantities, second is derived quantities. So first of all, we will study fundamental quantities. So what is the fundamental quantities? See students, if we talk about the length, mass, time, okay, we cannot express length in terms of mass, we cannot express mass in terms of time, likewise we cannot express the time in terms of length. So these are independent of any other quantity. Like length we cannot express the length in other quantity, like in mass or in time. So length is independent quantity. So those quantities which are independent of other physical quantities and are not usually defined in terms of other physical quantities are called fundamental quantities. एग्जाम्पल आपको बता ही दिए हैं मैंने. फर्स्ट इज length, mass and time, and there are other also fundamental physical quantities. We will study those in further videos, in further lectures. Next is the derived quantities. What are the derived quantities? See students, derived quantities basically based upon the physical quantities. They are derived from the fundamental quantities. Not physical, no, but fundamental quantities. For example, if we see the speed is equal to distance upon my time. So distance means length, time is time. So here if you see, speed is expressed in terms of length and time. So length is also a fundamental quantity and time is also a fundamental quantity. So to express speed we need two fundamental quantities, which are length and the time. So we cannot express speed independently. It depends upon length and the time. As length vary, the speed will vary. As time vary, speed will vary. So similarly, we can say that those quantities which are depend upon the other quantities. See student, in fundamental quantities we defined that these are the quantities which are independent of other quantities. But here in derived quantities we will say that these are those quantities which are based on the other physical quantities, and other physical quantity means fundamental quantities. So these quantities are called derived quantities. So in this way we have some of the examples of the derived quantities. One is speed. Okay, speed we define this in terms of length and the time. And also we have the other quantities, like we have the area. So we define area in terms of length. Okay, so area depend upon the length, because area is equal to length into breadth. So length is length, breadth is also length. So both are the length and length, so it becomes length square. So area depend upon length square. Similarly, we have many derived physical quantities. So this is the all about the physical quantities. We have studied two physical quantities. One is fundamental and second is the derived quantities. Thanks for attending the class.